Like,
Oh,
man.
love it. Just look like an absolute.
Well, hello. Hope everyone's doing well. It is a Monday, final day of January in 2022. Brendan Glasheen, Jeff Ulrich, Matt Meiselman. We are here for what's called the Slate. It is a DraftKings show. We talk to you everything DFS and sportsbook. We've got you for the next 45 minutes, taking you up to the night slate of Madden on this Monday because there's no Monday Night Football. Now we've got to get ready for a football game in 2 weeks, as opposed to this coming weekend. So Rams, Bengals, a lot to discuss. Rams are the away team officially, even though the game is at the LA Coliseum. Technically speaking, they are the away team, but for the second straight year, a team that is in the Super Bowl is playing at their home stadium, which is pretty neat. But we will get into that game quite a bit. We have Jeff Ulrich, who covers NHL stuff for us at DraftKings over on DK Live, the DK Playbook. Matt Meiselman.
I do PGA as well and football.
PGA as well.
Okay, yeah, I can be the hockey guy today. I'm the hockey guy today. Fine.
Something. I'm glad you brought that up because let me just give
I
me
did
30
hit
seconds.
an 80-1 winner last week in the PGA, by the way. I mean, like, by God,
let me get
getting
something
my
off
own
chest
show
here.
just for that.
And you know what? I'm going to look right into the camera. And if you want to clip this and send it to him, do it, please. I was told last week by Emerson Latzia that Wednesday is the golf guy's day. So when I asked Emerson to switch shifts today with me, he couldn't do it because he needs his bro time with Reed and Jeff. There could be no possible show on Wednesdays without the golf guys. So golf guys are coming to you Wednesday. That's when you get Jeff in his golf cap. And tell everyone you know, it's Golf Guys Wednesday. That's how it goes. So it's definitely going to be Emerson, Jeff, and Reed. It can't be anybody else. That's what I was told when I needed to make a switch from my busy schedule by Mr. Latzia there. So
he's a delicate flower too. I mean, we have to handle him with kid
unbelievable.
gloves, Carl Emerson.
It all worked out, actually, anyways. So
Good.
I'm here and there's no issues. However, I just felt like Jeff bringing up that he covers golf, but I can't touch golf because golf's for Wednesdays and the golf guys, I guess is my overall point.
I feel like golf guys with Jeff and Glash sounds way better than whatever other group of people it can be.
Maybe Emerson's just scared that you'll take over and we'll realize, you just rhyme better. So who knows?
Golf guys are on Wednesday. So got to tease that and get everyone amped up for Golf Guys Wednesday with Emerson, Jeff, and Reed. Only them can work the Wednesday shift. Moving on, Matt Meiselman also covers the NBA at DK Live and the DK Playbook, so we can work in some NBA. Lots of injury news to get to on tonight's slate, but we're going to start with the Super Bowl. And opening thoughts from yesterday. I know folks have been hammering the coverage and reaction to yesterday, but Jeff, we'll go to you first. Football cap on, Jeff. Yep. What do you make of this matchup? How do you want to start? Rams, Bengals.
I mean, first of all, I love it just from a watchability and a betting standpoint. I mean, this is such an interesting Super Bowl matchup. Two teams nobody thought was going to be there. And two styles that, I think both these teams, you can kind of poke holes in them, but they both have certain tendencies that I think is going to make this game really interesting. And I do have a side I'm leaning towards, right off the bat, but I think just reviewing the two games and what stood out last weekend, I mean, The 49ers just seem to get, I mean, both teams, both teams who won got given semi-gifts from the teams that lost. I mean, like Andy Reid not kicking a field goal before halftime and just putting the nail in the coffin, costly. And then San Francisco dropping an interception, not going for it on 4th and short, not converting when they were up 10 going into the fourth quarter, man. Like these are pretty big choke jobs. And really, I don't know if they're necessarily the player's fault. I mean, you could certainly tag Jimmy G, but we kind of know Jimmy G was going to do that if he was put in that situation. Like Kyle Shanahan put him in that situation. Some pretty big coaching errors, like in my opinion. And just like people don't talk about this enough. They'll talk about the players and they'll talk about Jimmy Garoppolo and how he stinks, but they won't talk about the coaching mistakes. And I think the Rams got lucky. I think the Rams have gotten lucky all playoffs. They didn't have to play the Packers in Green Bay. They got an easy matchup against just Arizona, which was checked out like 4 weeks ago. And then they got a gift from San Francisco. I mean, I'll say it right now. I think this matchup is way better for Cincinnati. I think there's other factors why the Bengals really, I think that the game and being in LA actually favors the Bengals. Maybe we can talk about that later, but really interesting weekend. And yeah, obviously I'm leaning Cincinnati to start this week.
Sean McVay, both of the challenges, in my opinion, didn't make any sense in the world. Like, how do you not have a guy? See, this is where like the whole Belichick Patriots thing, like Kaufman comes on here and gets all Belichick Patriots. This is where I kind of get where he's coming from, because at least someone's upstairs being like, Bill, don't do it. It's clear as day. Don't do it. Like, who's that guy for Sean McVay? That's number one. So Jeff's on that. McVay, I know he won the game, but man, he was kind of losing his mind. The pacing up and down the sideline. Oh boy, that was
big contrast between him and Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor is on the sidelines. He's watching the game. He's like a fan. He's like, oh man.
Yeah.
Right. McVay's pacing like a, caged beast or something.
Oh. Kyle Shanahan at the end of the game with Jimmy Garoppolo throwing the interception. Why was Jimmy Garoppolo in such a rush there? You still had 80 seconds to play in the game. It's not like you're I think it may have been third down, but you're in 4-down territory regardless, just super rushed. I guess the way this is an even playing field now is that all of the coaches, the final 2 coaches here in this game, are both young. It's not like we have an Andy Reid versus a McVay or a Shanahan. Both coaches, both who worked together at one point, McVay and Zach Taylor. But man, yeah, that was something there down the stretch. Meiselman, what do you got?
So unfortunately, I don't think this Super Bowl has anything close to the 2 best teams this year. It kind of sounds like that's what Jeff was saying too. To me, the Super Bowl would have been at least better quality if we had. I mean, I think the Cowboys, after the Bucs lost Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown, that was who I thought was probably the best team in the NFC. And then it was maybe the Cowboys or Packers. Like the Rams are probably a notch below that. In the AFC, I could probably name 5 to 7 teams that I think are better than the Bengals. So the difference, I think, between these 2 teams and their roads to the Super Bowl, both of them were gifted wins, like you said, this past weekend. I think it's 2 weeks in a row that this has happened for Cincinnati, though, which is not the case for the Rams. The Rams survived trying to give the game away 2 weeks earlier against Tampa Bay,
right?
Because they just had so much talent that they were able to overcome it, because Cooper Kupp is just that good. And he basically just goes out and wins them games when everyone else is doing everything wrong. Jamar Chase is great and may ultimately become the best wide receiver in the NFL. And he might already be in that conversation. But the things that Cooper Kupp can do and how reliable he is, and also how well Odell Beckham's playing, like the Rams are just the better team, I think. And they just played incredibly well against Tampa Bay. San Francisco did kind of give them the game, and also not going for it on 4th and 2 for the 49ers on the Rams side of midfield.
After the challenge. Right.
Yeah, right. They had the time to set up the play. You want to try to draw them offsides, fine. Call a timeout after you do that, and then go back out on the field and run a play, right? Like there's just no reason not to do that. If you want to do try to draw the team offsides thing, why not still try to convert it after that? You burn a timeout, but it probably isn't that big of a deal. You have to go for it on 4th and 2 from just about anywhere in any situation. Like I know analytics versus traditional football, it's like a thing we could talk about forever, but this is not a conversation when you have 4th and 2 on the other team's 45-yard line, unless you're up multiple scores at that point in the game. Like I would say you need to have a 17-point lead or more if it's early enough. So let's say it's more than 10 minutes in the game. Unless you're up 17 or more, just go for it. And then if there were 2 minutes left in the game and you were up 10, okay, fine, don't go for it. Like the conversion rate on those is high enough that it's worth it. And especially when you have such a dynamic player like Deebo Samuel, you're probably going to be able to convert that. For all of Jimmy Garoppolo's faults, like he can just get the ball to Deebo. It's 2 yards. You're in the middle of the field. It's different than 4th and goal to 2 also because you have a whole field to work with. It's not like you're confined to just those 12 yards with the 2 yards and then the end zone. So like teams just need to be going for it. The Rams got very lucky that the Niners botched that situation. The Bengals, on the other hand, were given multiple things that they didn't deserve. Like the Chiefs could have kicked a field goal at the end of the half, but they also could have just been more efficient with the clock and scored a touchdown because they had plenty of time. And Mahomes, I think I'm remembering this right, had at least 13 seconds leading up to the final play. And that play took 8 seconds where they got down to 5. And then again, with 5 seconds left, you can run a play that takes 4 or less seconds. You just throw a quick pass to the end zone. If it's incomplete, it's incomplete. And they somehow managed to get 0 points out of that. They should have gotten 7. And then the tip ball at the line that led to the pick that then led to the game being tied. Like those are fluky plays too. And I think the Bengals were basically given the same thing by Ryan Tannehill the week before. So I don't even think the Bengals are playing well right now. Like it's amazing they've made it so far.
I think their secondary has come through for them in certain spots, but you're right. I mean, the end of the game for the Chiefs too. Like, what are you doing? You get the ball inside the 10, like the 5 second down, just run it to the 2. Then at least you have one play from the 2. You can even run it 3 and just try and win the game. I mean, they take sacks, like they make it. Oh man, so many just weird things by Kansas City in that game. It just felt like they got a little flustered and just started doing like dumb stuff. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Like Cincinnati, I think they're probably a little bit better team than Matt gives them credit for, but they haven't really done anything that great the last 2 weeks. They've just kind of won the game. And
that's the AFC this year for us, right? That's like the AFC all year.
Joe Burrow's making some plays, and like his rate under pressure is insane. He's the best quarterback under pressure this year. Actually, these are the 2 best quarterbacks under pressure this year, I do believe. So, you give credit to Joe Burrow. I mean, absolutely. He's doing it with behind a weak line. I think he's masking a lot of weaknesses, but it's weird. Like they really haven't been like they feel like they don't deserve to be here. And that's coming from a guy who's been on like the Joe Burrow is like the best young quarterback of the last 2 years. And we should be behind him guy. Like I love this guy, but the Bengals it feels weird that they're here. It feels weird that the Rams are here too, to me. Like, I don't think the Rams are that good. They just have Cooper Kupp making plays every week. So I don't know. It's a weird Super Bowl, but I'm kind of for it for the betting and stuff.
The play call, the play clock stuff at the end of the game yesterday, very generous, the officials. So that was another one that just goes back to coaching. Like they could have gotten burned there, Shanahan and McVay, with the ball getting snapped on time, which leads to Jeff's point about backing the Bengals, and we can transition. The line is 4 on the DK Sportsbook, totals at 48.5. I mean, you could argue right now of those 4 quarterbacks yesterday, and I know this is going to be crazy because of what Mahomes has done here early in his career. Joe Burrow is the coolest customer right now, a quarterback. He's just poised, in control. He's relaxed. I mean, that matters to me. I've got more faith in him right now as far as the moment. They're also like the whole narrative. Meiselman, they're playing with house money right now. Like no one thought they would be here, kind of thing. And they're playing that card, and that card is real. The Rams, Jared Goff got here before and didn't pull through. Sean McVay got here before, had too much in his playbook against the Patriots, and that came back to bite him because he overthought the whole game way too much. Now, give both teams credit defensively. It was a defensive battle a couple of years ago, but McVay overthought it. A lot of pressure on Stafford, pressure on the Rams as a whole. I was silly to take the Chiefs -7 last week. I think you got to take the Bengals and the points. I really do.
I don't think you were silly to take the Chiefs -7. Like it's really hard to know because Patrick Mahomes' season trajectory. Before we get into this game, this is kind of the last thing I wanted to talk about as far as recapping the game. Yes. Patrick Mahomes was more or less terrible for 7 weeks this season, right? So should we
Questions
just
about his
ignore-
mechanics, his scout coming out of A&M, all of it.
So there's a tendency where people really, really heavily weigh the most recent thing that's happened. And at the midpoint in the season,
It's real.
we talked about Patrick Mahomes. It was like, this guy's bad now. He was the favorite to lead the NFL in interceptions at one point in the season. I think he was leading, and then maybe it was Zach Wilson who saved it. I don't think he ended up having the lead, but whatever. He was making a ton of mistakes. And we basically just saw that come back in this game, right? Like, he basically played the same way he played for 2 months at the beginning of the season. It shouldn't be that surprising unless you're someone who is inclined to throw out the first half of the season because the second half of the season looked very different. But this is a point I've been making all year, is that football seasons are not very long, and the second half of the season is 8 games. Like, it's not that many games. And those other 8 games, yes, they were a long time ago, but they were only 9 or 10 games ago at this point. You know, in the course of a baseball season, it's a week and a half. Football just happens to be very spaced out, and we just forget things very easily. So the point of that,
folks thought he turned a corner, I think, is what it was.
That's-
The whole team. And
Sure.
they were healthy, right? CEH back. It's not like they were banged up and I don't. Yeah, I guess you're onto something.
it's basically, the point is just that we shouldn't read too much into the stuff that's happened most recently. Yes, that can be the case sometimes. We just don't know until afterwards, right? Like, if someone was playing really well and started playing poorly, we can speculate maybe he's hurt. And then maybe after the season, we find out, oh, he actually was hurt, or vice versa. He got healthy and he was hurt at the beginning of the season. With Mahomes, we don't really know what was going on the first half of the year. So we should have been keeping it in the back of our minds, like, hey, this could come back. Like, he was awful in a few games in the first 2 months. So again, it's just like, football is so high variance, not just because a muff punt can change an entire game or a block punt touchdown. It's high variance for that reason. It's also high variance just because we don't know everything, and there's so few games to sort through it. So leading into this Super Bowl, like, I'm confident the Rams are the better team. I don't know if they deserve to be 4 or 4.5 point favorites. But like, there's nothing about the Bengals to me that suggests they're really good.
This moved to 4.5 right now. It just
Did
moved.
it really, while it was on screen?
Wow. Yep. 4.5. That just happened. Mm-hmm.
So, okay. I mean, that's a big number too. Like, 3 and 7 are key numbers, but 4 is, I think 4 and 10 are similar. Like, those are important numbers. Games end by 4 all the time.
I'm not
So,
shocked.
yeah, like,
I'm not shocked. I
No,
think this
it-
home field, I think people are just buying into the home field. It's like, oh, Tampa won last year, so this is a big edge for the Rams. And I also think that, people, like, we talked about this Super Bowl having 2 teams that maybe don't deserve to be here. People need to get behind like a media favorite. Like, they need to have a team that, and the Rams are the team that people feel easiest about buying into. Like, no one wants to sit here and be like, oh yeah, the Bengals are good, because nobody picked the Bengals at the start of the year. At least some people picked the Rams at the start of the year. They're like, oh yeah, see, the Rams are here. We're smart. The Rams have as little merit as being here as the Bengals. So I'm not shocked. I think you may even see this line get up to 5. It wouldn't shock me. Well, I mean, I'm not going to throw up projections like that, but I'm not shocked. I think that the Rams are going to be the more public side, and happy to take the points with Cincy.
It's a weird dynamic though, because I feel like if you're betting the Rams, you're probably laying the points, like laying 2-1 on the money line, unless you're parlaying with something. Most people don't really want to do that. And if you're taking the Bengals, you probably just are rooting for them to win. So like, I don't know, when you have the public betting 2 different parts of the market, how that affects the line movement necessarily. It's a little bit hard to gauge, but I think you may be right. The line ends up at 5, but I could see it back down to 4 at some point too. This could be a line that just bounces around, because obviously it's the Super Bowl. There's tons of action on it. And same for the total. Like, it could just be a line that moves back and forth for a while. It's not going to stay in one spot, obviously, because many, many people are interested in betting this game.
How do we anticipate that movement happening? Like, we have 13 days. When do most folks get involved? I guess right before kickoff, right? Because folks are contemplating what they want to do. But if it were to get to a 5, does it get there early in the week because folks pounce on the Rams early in the game? Early in the game, meaning early in the this week.
I think it's really hard to know what people are doing at this point. Like,
are they betting the Pro Bowl? I don't know.
Yeah, I think they're probably betting the Pro Bowl. Like, I think some people are going to take a wait and see approach and just, not want to get involved yet, and maybe they can wait out the best number. Maybe they're waiting for their favorite people who talk about the game, their favorite analysts like us, to say what we think before they bet, right? They want to see what, all the pundits are saying and weigh all of that stuff. And then people may be waiting for injury things. Like we have the tight end on each team. We don't know if Uzama or Higbee is going to play. Player prop wise, like I don't know when most of the action comes in, but as far as I think it's going to be pretty level throughout the week. You're going to have some people that love to bet early and some people that love to bet late. And I think there's just so many people betting on this game in general that you'll just see a wave. There won't be a dead time really. So I would expect that it's just like, there isn't one day in the next 2 weeks you can pinpoint as like, this is the day everyone's going to bet. But there will be plenty of people betting like Sunday morning.
Yeah, I think today is kind of pivotal. I think there's a lot of people who'll just get on something early. Like I'm not shocked. I've already seen a lot of like Rams love too. And it was a little surprising, but I think a lot of people are, again, just trying to get, I think the Rams are getting heat right now because again, people want to believe that they're significantly better than the Bengals. I don't think that's a true fact at all. They might not even be a better team than the Bengals, but I think that's what's getting built up right now. So I'm not shocked to see the Rams. I think today is a big movement day. I'm actually not surprised to see that move, but I think that's right. I think the rest of the week up until like the actual Super Bowl, it'll just be kind of like a trickling in. It's interesting. Matt brings up the tight end stuff too. I forgot about those injuries, but I think that actually favors the Bengals. Drew Sample is actually like a pretty good tight end. He's a legit backup. He's a legit player. The Rams really don't have a legit backup tight end. And I think that could hurt them if the Cincy secondary keeps playing well. So I think it's a lesser thing for the Bengals and a bigger deal for the Rams.
Well, if OBJ keeps up the way he's played, that's been a pretty dynamite addition, right?
Absolutely. And again, like, what are the Packers doing not getting that guy? I mean, we could talk about that for an hour.
Yeah. Just to give a data point
don't worry, Jeff. Aaron Rodgers will address that very soon in another 30-minute press conference.
Is Aaron Rodgers going to be playing for the Rams next year or something? Or Beckham will be playing with him in Denver or what? Who knows?
I'll tell you right now. I mean, you, to your point, I mean, OBJ is making a case that he deserves another contract because he's been awesome. He has been great in these playoffs.
That's the one thing I'm happy to see on the Rams. I mean, their gamble on Odell Beckham paid off, but it's good to see Odell Beckham just getting back. I mean, if you watched him play in Cleveland, to me, it was like he never looked bad. He looked explosive. He looked like he was open a lot, and it just was like, why isn't the ball going to him?
Well, Baker Mayfield might be a lot worse than most people think, right?
It was about the Browns and Baker, not OBJ.
Yeah. Well, and like, I'm not even care about like if your team Baker or team Odell. I'm just saying from an eye standpoint, like seeing Odell Beckham now produce and play well, it actually makes me like feel sane again because I like people are saying Odell's done. And I'm like, this dude looks exactly the same. He's just not getting the ball. So it kind of makes me feel a little bit vindicated seeing Odell Beckham succeed again because it was really frustrating to watch him play. And
it's amazing how seamless it's fit in. And Cooper Kupp still scored 2 touchdowns yesterday.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Like you figure they add him, that could disrupt things. And he has fit in without any issue. Him and Kupp have been awesome. It's kind of crazy.
It does help too that that Beckham is playing in a better,
scheme.
There are reasons why LA is better. Kupp draws attention from the defense. It's easier for him to get open, but he's playing in better weather too. Like playing in Cleveland passing wise can be tough. The wind, the cold, everything.
Well, and you've got, to your point, Pittsburgh, Cincy, Baltimore. That to be half your season is that outdoors. Crap.
It's hard to throw in those conditions. Just one more data point on these teams too. In terms of DVOA from Football Outsiders, the Rams are currently 5th for the season. The Bengals are 14th. I don't want to put too much stock, like those numbers they can be flawed for reasons that are kind of complicated. Like Tampa Bay rates really highly, but we know that Godwin and Brown were out. So like the numbers include them. It doesn't necessarily tell the whole story. But if you look at like the Bengals team level stats and the Rams team level stats and just like yards per play and, were they fortunate to get turnovers? Like the Bengals have won the turnover battle throughout the playoffs every game. In terms of yards per play, they were pretty even with the Chiefs, but like we talked about, the Chiefs seemed to implode on their own. Like without the Bengals, Mahomes wasn't even pressured on plays and was just running backwards and falling down essentially. The Bengals were outplayed in terms of yards per play by the Titans, and Ryan Tannehill just threw 3 interceptions. So like you can give them some credit for generating the interceptions, but those plays tend to be fairly random, right? Like if Matthew Stafford's deep ball is caught at the end of the game by the defense, like, these sorts of things are so fluky and so important that like it's really hard to assess a football team just based on wins and losses and the final score. Like Stafford made a horrific throw at the end of that game. And if the defender catches the ball, they lose. Like they almost certainly lose. So that's why analytics matter. And I guess like if I have to say where do the Bengals actually rank in terms of best teams in the NFL, I think they're around the 10th best and the Rams are around the 5th best. And Jeff and I might even agree to a decent extent on that. Like maybe he would say 8th and 6th or 7th and I don't know, somewhere like they're both good, but they're not great. And I do think the Rams are a decent amount better. So ultimately, like I think the line's fair, which is, obvious. Well, that's what I was always going to say about the Super Bowl spread is that it feels right that it's around 4.5 points. I don't really have any strong lean on the number.
Okay. Very good. We do have a showdown available on DraftKings, big juicy showdowns available to the people. $15 entry for the NFL Showdown, $6 million Super Bowl millionaire. Super Bowl, this is what, 56? Is that right? I'm not great with my Roman numerals. Super Bowl 56. Is that right? Okay. You're right. Both nodding, so I'll take your nodding for it.
I was just agreeing. I have no idea. I don't.
Okay. Super Bowl 56.
It says it on somewhere. One of my tabs that I've opened says 56 on it.
Okay.
It is 56.
Great. All right. It's not every day you look at Roman numerals, just saying.
That's true. Once a year.
There you go. Once a year. What do we think about this contest and salaries? Cup is up there once again. And Jeff, I know you were a big advocate of Cup in the 2-game classic last week, and he was great. Again.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think everyone was an advocate for Cup in the classic.
Yeah, but like, I guess if you wanted to try to be contrarian, you had to maybe not play him. But if you didn't play him, it kind of burned.
No, I don't think that's. I'm trying to pull it up now. I think that Hill and Chase ended up being more popular because of the salary discount and because no one wanted to play Jimmy Garoppolo, which to me was the easiest way to save the money was to play the cheapest quarterback. Yeah. Cooper Kupp's ownership for the millionaire contest was in the high 40s. Tyreek Hill, it was 47.6 for Kupp, 49.6 for Hill. Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to find Chase here, who was at 55.6. So Kupp was actually third behind both of them.
Wow.
Because of the way the salaries worked out. So playing Jimmy G and Cooper Kupp, like that was the way to, or, if you played P. Ryan or Blanton, someone cheap who got you there. But this could be the case again, right? Where like Kupp is the most expensive and one, people will have a hard time making lineups with him, especially a captain. And then two, to your point, people might just assume he's the chalk because he's the best player in the game and not play him just because they think he's the chalk. And if everyone does that or enough people do that, he ends up not being the chalk. Like, I think that is a lot of what happens some of the time. So there's a lot more, I think, game theory that goes into this contest because people have 2 weeks to think about it. Like you could get people kind of going too far against the grain to the point where they're now overthinking it. They've double counted the thing and now it's not even true anymore.
Yeah, there's 2 weeks for people to twist themselves inside out about Cooper Kupp and think themselves off it. We also do have the injury stuff, which could make all this just incredibly easy to fit in Cooper Kupp. Like if Sample does end up starting,
or Blanton, right? It feels like Sample's more likely to go. Like Uzama's injury is more serious, and Higbee. The report on Higbee is he avoided serious damage.
And those tight end prices though are up. They're not that low. Like I think they're priced to the point where they would be if you expected them to start. Like you can't play Drew Sample at what is he 4,200 if he's not the starter, right? Like he would have been $200. Like, I think he's priced there for the scenario where Uzama's out.
Yeah, Blanton too. I think Blanton too at 4,600, only $200 cheaper.
Yeah. Those guys would have been the minimum without the injuries.
They did do a pretty good job of pricing those guys up, actually.
I think the guy who is probably going to be the most widely considered value play, I would think, is Cam Akers. He's in the mid tier, but he's much cheaper than the rest of the main players.
He got outsnapped last week by Sony Michel. I mean, I don't know. But I think they go back to Cam Akers, though. I do think they go back to Cam Akers.
Yeah, and also, like, who's the value play then, right? Like, if Akers is getting 60% of the snaps, and most of the rushes too, because Michelle seems to be in there largely for pass blocking. Like, his fantasy projection is going to look really good at that number at 6,400, especially because, like, Mixon's way more expensive, the quarterbacks are way more expensive. Even the secondary receivers are priced above that. I think most of them are, like Beckham, Higgins. So I imagine people play Akers, and then if you want to be contrarian, like, is this the game where you play the defenses? I'm not sure, but it seems like a hard game to find value unless, like, more news pops up. You know, Van Jefferson's been dealing with an injury. Maybe, like, Ben Skoranek ends up being the number 3 because Van Jefferson can't go, something like that. But as it stands, like, I do think you can play Sample and you can play Blanton. They're just not aggressively underpriced or anything. They might be slightly underpriced if they're the starters.
How about P. Ryan? Because folks will be like, oh, yeah, did you see the P. Ryan play? Like, they're going to use him again. He's a secret weapon.
Yeah, I do actually. So one of the bets for props that I'm looking at is the under on receiving yards for Joe Mixon. I do think that P. Ryan will get a little more playing time as a result of how good he looked on that one play, like a little extra, tiny amount. But I think it's enough to swing that where you can take a shot on him in showdown. He could be popular, to your point, but like
4 targets, that's
decent, and right? He's playing all the third downs regardless. Like, Mixon does not play on third down. But I think the thing that changed for the Bengals Chiefs game that wasn't happening in prior weeks is P. Ryan was getting snaps early downs too. Not many, but like he was getting a couple. And ordinarily Mixon plays every first down and every second down. And I feel like maybe with the wear and tear of the season, the Bengals feel like it's better to mix it in a little more and have P. Ryan play, you know, let's say 10% of the non-third down snaps. And at that price, like, he becomes appealing if you can expect him to get 4 targets.
Samaje Perine is a pretty good player too. But yeah, I think that a lot of people drift towards that as well. They'll look for those cheap PPR points. They'll say, you can look at the Rams defense, how it sets up too. You know, like, they're very good at stuffing the run, but I think even in receptions to running backs, like, people probably feed off that. So especially if we get Ozama and Higgins back, or Higbee back, then P. Ryan could end up being like kind of, he might just pop up with like 30% ownership or something crazy like that. I could see it. Absolutely.
So this is going to be a pretty standard take for me, but to me, the best leverage play, which is probably what I would say for like 50 to 70% of showdowns, is the starting running back on the underdog. Like, Joe Mixon's price is not appealing. But I think he will have substantially lower ownership in GPPs than Kupp, Stafford, Burrow, and Chase. Like, there will be a drop-off before Mixon. And because he's on the underdog, people are not going to expect him to have a positive game script. I think people are going to play P. Ryan because you need a cheap guy to fit. And you can basically, if you rewind the tape for our other shows over the course of the season, I would say about half the time I'm touting the running back on the team that's the underdog, and admitting that he's overpriced too, because compared to Akers, like, this is way too expensive. But I think Mixon could come in 25% for this contest. So that's probably my favorite play for the game.
Yeah. And realistically, like, it's a good opposing running back to target if he's going to be lower owned, because like Joe Mixon's got 7 games with 25 or more DK points. That's, his upside is very comparable to the other plays who are going to be popular, which is going to be Chase and Kupp and the quarterbacks. Right. So, like, we know that he's a player who can get loose in the screen game for a big touchdown, whatever. Maybe the Bengals just run the ball better than people realize. So, yeah, I mean, look, I think Cam, I'm for showdown, I almost guarantee Cam Akers will be a big fade for me. I just think he's playing terrible. And even I hope he does get the start, and I hope they talk him up again. I don't want any piece of that guy, man.
And for me, I think I'm going to be betting the under on Joe Mixon's receiving yards while also putting him in the captain slot. So I'm not going to know what I'm rooting for during the game. That's going to be a little difficult. Maybe they just have to hand it off to him. That'll feel good.
What's his Mixon
For receiving, I think he's in the high 20s, maybe
25 and a half.
That's okay. I thought I saw 29 and a half yesterday, so someone beat me to it.
Okay.
I don't
How
know.
ironic would it be if the Rams, the last time they were in the Super Bowl, Sony Michel was running huge for the Patriots, and then what if it ends up being Sony Michel's night because of how poorly Akers has run the ball lately? So Michel,
we don't have a Sony Michel rushing prop yet, right? Because his over under the last game was like 14 yards. I'm really curious to see what that number is because he had a very low rushing over under, and it's not even listed yet. If he's playing half the snaps, if he gets the same workload that he got in the NFC Championship, and his rushing total is sub 20, that becomes probably the best over bet for anything. But my guess is it's going to be a lot higher just because of how much he was on the field.
I'm a little late to the party. I'm just reacting because I have it up right now, but these quarterback rushing props are kind of fun too. Like Joe Burrow, if you look at his game logs, has been a little more mobile now these last 4 or 5 games. At the end of the game, he got a scramble. More so, not even the end of the game, the 2-minute warning, trying to get points, emphasis on points at the end of halves. That's when these quarterbacks, I feel like, are getting to their rush props. So Burrow.
So I'm never going to bet one of those ever again because I was on the under for Mahomes rushing yards two Super Bowls ago. And that was as lucky as you possibly can get on any bet ever that Patrick Mahomes decided to lose 11 yards on 3 kneel downs to hit the under by 2 yards, which is virtually impossible. I'm going to retire from this market after that.
All right.
Is that fair?
If you had the over, you probably want to retire.
If you had the over on that bet too, you probably want to retire for a different reason.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we could talk about the Super Bowl MVP too.
Yeah.
That's always kind of fun. Because I feel like there's some value there in a Von Miller or Aaron Donald because the key is, can Joe Burrow be protected, right? That's if you're siding with the Rams, Jeff brings up home field. I feel it's more like they can't protect this guy. He gets knocked on his bottom too much, and Donald, Miller, they'll game plan something to try and get Burrow uncomfortable, and maybe it will end up being a lower scoring game. The Bengals have played in lower scoring games this year. The Rams have proven they can win on defense. They'll try to protect themselves from having to lean on Stafford. I think the game the other night, that's a situation last night where McVay's like, I got to try and throw Shanahan off and let Stafford throw more. And for Cincinnati, we need to throw to keep up or keep pace with the Chiefs. So game plan wise, I could see a lower scoring game and defensive stars such as Donald or Miller being nice picks at Super Bowl MVP.
I don't know if you're getting
a game where we just quickly, and then Jeff, you can weigh in on this. I just want to ask something about last year's Super Bowl. There was a point in the game where we thought that 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
That Kyle Juszczyk was approaching favorite to win MVP for the game. Is that he scored the first touchdown and then almost scored the second touchdown. And at that point,
you're right.
That was going to be 1,000. I don't know if it's good value to take a shot on someone like that. Maybe the defensive player is the better way to go. But yeah, Jeff, you explain it. I don't have a guy that I like. No.
I was just going to say, I think what Glash brings up, I think there is. I mean, look, we've already talked. I mean, where we have these teams ranked and they're not in the top 5 of the league, essentially. So there's definitely a chance here. We just get a crappy game, and defense kind of takes over. I just don't know if you're getting enough juice on Aaron Donald at plus 1,800.
Yeah,
it would be he
Von
is
Miller
the name value though. What's that?
Von Miller plus 5,000.
I think Von Miller. I was gonna say, I think
this guy just a week ago was knocking Tom Brady over, or at least giving Tom Brady problems.
Because he's got similar name recognition.
Yep.
And if he comes through with
big part of it.
Yep. 3 sacks or something. Actually, now that I think about it, maybe even just Jalen Ramsey plus 6,500 isn't the worst idea either. Pick 6, maybe 2 turnovers or something, a bunch of tackles.
Yeah.
If it's a 20-3, 21-10 Rams win, yeah, I mean, that could happen. Absolutely. And if I'm betting the Rams side of it, I mean, I almost feel like I'd rather do that than go with Cooper Kupp. I think Cooper Kupp I almost feel like he's he's good value at plus 650, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like, I think he's got just as good because of the season he's coming off of. It almost feels like he's got as much name recognition right now as Matthew Stafford. And that's weird to say because I'm usually the guy saying, don't bet anyone but the quarterbacks in these props. But for the Rams side of the ball, I don't really have that much interest in Matthew Stafford. I think I'd rather go to either like a Jalen Ramsey or a Cooper Kupp. I think that betting against Burrow for the Bengals is a different story. I think if the Bengals win, it's Joe Burrow's survived the Rams pass rush. You know, he probably did some kind of game-winning drive again. I feel like I don't really want to bet against that.
Unless Jamar Chase catches 2 touchdowns. You know, maybe.
Yeah, but the thing is, if Jamar Chase catches 2 touchdowns, they're coming from Joe Burrow, right?
Yeah.
So,
all right.
And you can make the same argument for Kupp, but Kupp has been so good this year that I think that would weight him more. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm all.
It was only 3 Super Bowls ago where Edelman was the MVP in a low-scoring game, and that was controversial because folks thought. But the issue was that Patriots defense that year was just so well connected. There was no one star and no one big name, right? Like Hightower is a big name, but he wasn't a big player in that game. He was good. He didn't stand out from the pack, I guess is my point. Edelman had a lot of catches over the middle,
right?
You know, between the trenches, set up 2 scoring plays, the touchdown and the field goal. Well, 2 field goals. So maybe OBJ could have that kind of game. At least that's how he's played for the Rams, where he could set up scores. I don't know, but I think
barring the defensive touchdown or one player forcing 2 turnovers on defense, like it's really hard for a defensive player to win.
Yeah.
I mean, Aaron Donald, can he get 4 sacks or like 2 sacks and 4 tackles for a loss or some crazy stat line like that? Like, unless he forces a fumble. I mean, yeah, I just don't think 18 to 1's enough. Like he has a shot for sure. It just doesn't feel like enough odds. I would say if I had to rank my favorite bets from this market, Cooper Kupp's number 1 and Joe Burrow's number 2, which are like pretty boring bets. I'm basically just saying I think Stafford is not really worth going after at minus 105.
Yeah,
I think Kupp,
I agree 100%.
Kupp has a better shot.
I was going to say,
a better chance than Stafford, but better for his line.
The MVPs for the 2 teams coming into this game have been Cooper Kupp and Joe Burrow. So it's almost like they get that little boost coming in. And I think the other players kind of have to do something really spectacular to take them down. So.
And the point on Kupp versus Chase, like if Chase catches all the touchdowns, Burrow just wins. Why is that not true for Kupp? I think because Jamar Chase is very unlikely to have a 10 catch, 200-yard game, right? He could have a 5 reception or 6 reception, big yardage game with a couple of scores. But Cooper Kupp is much more likely to put up a game where he does all of the work, where he's catching all the passes, because Jamar Chase is the best deep threat and big play guy on the Bengals. He's not their best possession receiver. It's probably T. Higgins. It might even be Tyler Boyd. Like, they have other guys that are better at certain things. Cooper Kupp is the best on the Rams at everything. And there is a scenario where Cooper Kupp catches 14 passes in this game. So I think that's why there's a big difference between those 2 guys, because the Rams could win 21-17 and Kupp catches 2 touchdowns. Stafford throws for 3 and Kupp still gets it, even though he only caught 2 of the 3 touchdowns, because he also caught 14 passes. Like, that's kind of how I'm seeing it. So at plus 650, I think maybe it should be around plus 500. He has like a 15 to 20% chance of getting it. Like, and then if you think the Bengals are going to win, you can just, instead of betting on the Bengals, bet on Burrow. I think that's fairly reasonable also.
Yeah.
You know, it's fascinating too, before we move quickly to the NBA, because we have a question in the chat about the NBA, and we'll get some thoughts quickly from Meiselman before we wrap up. It's not like this game features the regular season MVP favorite, which typically happens in this game, right? You get the front runner, number 1 seed MVP, or at least someone who's in the conversation. No Brady, no Rodgers. Even at one point, Allen was in that. Those guys are not here. And Mahomes wasn't a consideration because, as Meiselman brought up, he played too poorly in the middle of the season to even be in the conversation. Now, Cooper Kupp probably deserves to be in the conversation, which I think that could give him even more of a lift, because like you guys both said, the MVPs of these teams are Burrow. And I know Burrow got a little love at the end too, but people realistically were like, no, it's going to go to Rodgers or it's going to go to Brady. So that in mind as well, voters, just trying to take ourselves inside the mind of a voter, they might look at it and go, well, as long as Kupp just has as long as Kupp scores, he might get it. Right?
Yeah.
Just because,
No,
like,
it's
well,
possible.
he's not gonna get enough votes for the regular season award, so he should deserve to get something out of the year.
I do think he'll get offensive player of the year as a result of this playoff run. He might have gotten it over Jonathan Taylor anyway, but
Yep.
this playoff run with the Colts not even being in the playoffs, like they'll just give him that. And I think Joe Burrow may win comeback player of the year over Dak
Yep.
Prescott because of
Yep.
advancing further in the playoffs, even though it's technically a regular season award and Dak maybe deserved it because of the regular season. Burrow getting to the Super Bowl, he may just get that award now. So maybe those are the things that they get instead, but it could be true. You could be right that they get more love for Super Bowl MVP as a result of not getting regular season MVP.
Right. And it's because, well, he's never going to have a chance to win regular season MVP because he's not a quarterback. Just that whole thing, I think, helps Kupp in his case. If he scores again, because that's the other thing. I think folks look at the whole run, too. He scored 2 last game, scores again in this one. That's a factor. Come on. These are people that are voting here.
The voters don't adhere to the rules particularly well, is basically what we're saying. Like, they get influenced by all these things that are not actually.
Yeah, they're human beings, right? I mean,
yes, they're not.
That's what I've been. That's why I always say when you bring up, like, you have to really think about who is voting on these things and why. It's why quarterbacks win all the time. And I don't know. Anyways.
Yep. Okay. Real quick before we go, Meiselman, there is a question. We actually have to go in like a minute, but there is a question here tonight. Embiid's out, so they're playing Memphis. Do you have any thoughts here on how you lean with the spread? Grizzlies are favored now on the road in Philadelphia, -3.5.
I'm glad this is the game we're going with, and I can give some other quick NBA thoughts after this. I'd bet the Sixers now. Like, this isn't, the Grizzlies were +2 this morning. I think this line is overcorrected. Not that Embiid's not worth 5.5 points. I think the Sixers were undervalued before. Like, they should have been -4 or 5. So the 5.5 points that they got should have moved the line from, let's say, 4.5 to 1 on the Grizzlies side. Like, I still think Philly probably loses, but this line's too high now. I'm a little more bullish on the Sixers than most people right now because they got Thibault and Denny Green. Like, they got some guys back that matter. Seth Curry's back. So yeah, I would definitely not take the Memphis side right now, even though I think they probably win. Okay. And then the other NBA news we have to watch out for is Trae Young, who I think is the most impactful player for betting in the entire NBA, specifically for the over-under, not for the spread, because Trae Young plays 0 defense, is amazing at offense, like top 3 player in the NBA offensively, and maybe bottom 3 NBA player in the league on defense, and also plays really, really fast and creates fouls and all the stuff. So, like, I think the over's really good if he's in, and I think the under's really good if he's out. I think it's that much of a gap where we see the line go to like 210 or 220 based on him playing or not.
Streaking Atlanta Hawks. They've won, 7 in a row? They're the hottest team in the league right now.
They beat the Lakers, who are, we'll save that for tomorrow.
That a boy. Nicely done. We'll give Chirag a hard time about the Lakers. We'll always find a way to work that in. All right, that is going to do it. Again, we will have plenty of Super Bowl 56 coverage in the next 13 days. So that was our first look at it on this show. Looking forward to next week as well, when we get really sharp for an hour next Monday in the month of February. So for Eamon and Tom behind the scenes, Jeff Ulrich, Matt Meiselman, Brendan Glasheen saying so long. Thanks for watching on Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter. We will have the slate again tomorrow at 5. And, of course, don't forget to watch The Sweat at 11 a.m. on these same platforms. We'll see you.